Hey, Hyfi listeners. Welcome to another episode of the Hyfi Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. If you don't know me, my name is Crystal Mazuka. I'm part of the Hyfi team. I am here with my friends Kayla and Isaac, and we are so excited because we are officially celebrating 1 full year of Hyfi. Woo! So exciting. I thought it would be so fun to just start off this podcast episode by asking you to, what is a highlight from our first year of Hyfi that you would like to just kind of draw attention to and celebrate?
I think my favorite part of this whole just 1 year of Hyfi is just hearing the personal stories. It's been so much fun on the Facebook group, getting to talk to some of you in person at events and at conferences, and really hearing the personal stories that have come from you all. And we love creating, we love putting all of this together, but honestly, without the life change, it really means nothing. So just being able to hear the stories of families who are starting at your church, of kids who are really finding where they belong, what their identity is in God, through Hyfi, through the relationships that you all have built, and through the power of God working through it. So that's been my favorite part.
You know, Isaac, I would love for our listeners to know how often our group text message is just sharing awesome things that people have told us about Hyfi. It's such an encouraging thing. I agree to hear about what God is doing all across the country, around the world, actually, with this incredible resource. So what about you, Kayla? What's a highlight?
Yeah, I would concur. I think just seeing and hearing Hyfi in the wild has been such a joy. You know, this team has been dreaming and planning and praying for this resource for way more than 1 year. Like, we've been working on this for several years. And so to see it in action and to see and hear the stories of the connections that kids are making with one another, the friends that they're making at church. Even last week, I heard a story about some leaders who were recently baptized and decided that this was a step of faith that they needed to take in their faith journey. These were leaders who have been serving in kids ministry for a while, and just through the things that God was doing in their heart as they led, as they taught this resource, how the Lord was working and stirring in their hearts that, hey, this is the next step of obedience that I'm ready to take now. And so it's just been really cool just to see and hear of God's faithfulness, of his goodness, and just of the ways that he's working. And so I think the biggest celebration is just that God is doing some really cool things, and he's using a resource like Hyfi to do it.
Yeah. And, I feel like I want to put out there, listeners, if you have any stories that you want to share with us and you haven't yet about how God is using this resource at your church or in your community, put it in the Facebook group or send us an email. We would love to hear those because we just love celebrating and rejoicing with you. I think it's incredible too. We started off with a great plan of what we thought Hyfi would be. Back then it was Next Gen Resource. We didn't have a name for it yet. And it's crazy how things have changed and shifted. And I would even say continuing to change and shift. Users right now, you're using something, and by the end of the year, there might be some new things. There might be some different things. And this whole time, we have had to really just hold this resource with open hands and say, God, we don't want our will to be done. We want your will to be done. And it's so comforting to know that God knows, he's always known. He's known the journey that we would be on together as a Hyfi community. He has known the mistakes and the bumps that would happen along the way. And I just think that's a great way to kind of lead into what this month is going to be about here in September. We are talking about the truth that we are known, or as we say in preschool, God knows me and you. Kids, the truth is I am known. And the fact that God knows everything about us. And that's such a great thing for kids and preschoolers to know in a world of uncertainty and a world of murkiness. We are known by the creator of the universe. And so Kayla, I want to ask you first. You are our, if people don't know, you're our team leader. You kind of keep this ship afloat. You are working so hard for everything. And we've had a lot of questions come up about the way that Hyfi works. So this is going to be the very first month where we are now repeating a truth. And so could you just let our listeners know, like, how does Hyfi work like that? When we have 12 truths, but we're saying, no, 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 like keep going because we've got new stuff every single year.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're new to Hyfi, check out the myhyfi.com. And you'll see our scope and sequence. Most scope and sequence study plans are a line. So there's a start point and there's an end point, and there's this big mapped out plan that starts in one place and ends in another place. Hyfi is different in a lot of ways, and that's one of them because we look at our scope and sequence as a wheel, as a circle. And so even in the way we talk about this rotation, we use that word rotation because this is the second spin around our scope and sequence wheel. And so while everything that the simple truths stays the same, everything inside of it changes. And so like last year, if you were with us last year in September, for kids, we did Zoom in. And we talked about how does God know us? We know that God made us and he hears us and he sees us and he loves us. He knows our story. This is the how God knows us. And so that's what we really dived into with preschool and kids. For preschool, that theme was inside and out. And we learned how God knows us inside and out. You notice in rotation 2, we've got totally new themes. We've got totally new Bible stories. We've got all new Bible story videos. We've got everything inside of the month is different. And so for kids, this month, we are going to be talking about how God knows our real thoughts. And so rather than talking about the how does God know us, we're talking about going a little bit deeper in rotation 2 and talking about what is it that God knows about us? Well, God knows our thoughts. He knows our wrong choices. There's all of these different caveats of things that God knows about us. And we're going to have some real talk in kids and really lean into what are the things that God knows about me? What are the things that I try to hide or I try to not show that God knows all of this? I don't need to hide it. I can be my true self of who God says I am because he knows me. He knows everything about me. With preschool, we're talking about how, guess who? God knows me and you. And in the similar vein of kids, we're doing the same Bible stories that kids are doing. And we're talking about, how is it that God knows us? What are the things he knows about us? He knows our thoughts. He knows our actions. And so those are some differences. I really encourage you, if you're new to Hyfi or if you're just wanting some more info about this new rotation, check out in our Facebook group, our Hyfi community Facebook group. Our whole team did this amazing unboxing of rotation 2. So you'll definitely want to go check that out and just hear about what are some things that I can expect in this year that maybe were a little different than what I had last year. There's also our scope and sequence plan is up for the next 6 months. So we released that several months ago. And so you are welcome to go and check that out. So you can see kind of what's coming for themes and Bible stories and all the fun stuff that is unboxed and is ready for you. So would definitely recommend go check out myhyfi.com for that scope and sequence, and then look in that community group, that Facebook community group, and go back and watch that like 20-ish minute video that really unboxes kind of what's coming and get excited with us about this new year.
Thanks so much for that explanation, Kayla. I think that's going to be really helpful, both just knowing what's coming this month, but also what's coming this year and in the Hyfi future. Like we're already working on the 3rd rotation, which is just super exciting. It's so fun to look and to dream and to plan and to see what's coming next. And so let's talk a little bit about this week, right? And so we've got our new theme, we've got our truth this month. We are talking about how God knows me and you in preschool. I am known in kids. And so Isaac, this first week, We're actually doing this story of the Pharisee and the tax collector from Luke 18:9 through 14. And, this is where Jesus tells a story, which, by the way, listeners, Isaac let us know we have to make it clear when Jesus is telling a story versus something actually happening, because he shared with our group as a kid, I thought this actually happened. The same way that Jesus sees the woman putting the coins in, he's like, we have to make sure that we know Jesus is telling a story, because then we can really draw it to the point. And so you'll see us be very clear about that. Thanks to Isaac Kirsten. But anyway, so it's the story of that Jesus tells about the Pharisee and the tax collector who go into the temple and pray. Oftentimes, we will teach this story as kind of having a focus of being humble when you pray. But we're really wanting to draw out that God knows our thoughts from this Bible story. So, Isaac, could you share a little bit about how we can do that as leaders?
Yeah, so in this story, we see these two men that are praying. One of them is a tax collector. He's the person that's kind of reviled by the community. He's not well liked. He's kind of the outcast. And then we have this other man who is a religious leader, and he's coming into the temple, and everyone looks at him and kind of looks at how he prays, looks at how he does things. He is the one that people kind of hold on this pedestal because of his rank. But what we want to show in this story is what Jesus is saying is that, hey, even though on the outside, these two men look this way, that's not what God sees. God doesn't see what's on the outside. God actually sees what their thoughts are, what they're thinking, what's in their heart. And when they begin to pray, it becomes evident what is inside their mind and what they are thinking, because the tax collector reveals that and shows that he is broken, that he needs God, in this moment. And that's what Jesus is celebrating here. But he's not celebrating the man who comes in and says, oh, I have it all together. You should look at me because of what I have done, because of what I have accomplished. And through all of this, we are seeing that Jesus is telling the people around him that it's not how we present ourselves on the outside, because God knows what we're thinking. God knows our real thoughts. And I love that the preschool super clue is a light bulb. Like those ideas, those crazy things that those young preschoolers think, sometimes they're not the best choices. Sometimes they're not the best things, but we get to show them that, hey, God knows your thoughts, and how you act is a reflection of the things that you are thinking. And when we choose to follow God, our thoughts and our actions, they're lining up. And that's what God is calling us to do.
That's awesome. That actually really leads well into the next question. And so this idea that we're talking about God knowing our thoughts, preschool, God knows me and you. God knows our thoughts. And in kids, like I am known, God knows my real thoughts. How can this bring comfort to kids and preschoolers today?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, especially because we know, I think about like kids in particular, my nieces and nephews, like when I get on the phone with them, they don't want to talk to me. They want a video. And the reason they want a video call is because they want to play with filters. Like they just want to sit there and put the silliest, goofiest filters, and like, they don't care what I have to say. They don't want to talk to me. I am literally their excuse to play with some filters and to put on a different face, right? And I say that because that's what our kids do in our it's what we as adults do. We try to put on this mask, we try to put on this different face that makes us look better or makes us feel better. And to be able to talk with kids about how God knows everything that you're thinking already. He knows what's going on inside of you. You don't have to hide that from him. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to clean yourself up like this Pharisee was trying to do. And even at the end of that story, God or Jesus is saying to the people listening to him, like, this man went away justified and this man did not. Right. And like Jesus is saying, like, God knows what is happening inside of you, not just what's coming out of your mouth. Mm-hmm. And so being able for kids to say, you can be real. Let's have some real talk right now. Like, God knows everything that you think, that you say, that you believe, that you do. And You don't have to hide that stuff. You can bring that to God. He can take care of it. He can handle it. And he can handle what you're actually thinking. And for preschool, that, that guess who, it's such a joy to know, like, God knows me and you. He knows everything about us, and the comfort that can bring, that we don't have to try to get to know God. He already knows us because he created us and he made us. So I think in both of those aspects, this is just a really helpful conversation for the kids who are growing up in our culture right now.
Thanks so much, Kayla. That's awesome. We're so excited for Hyfi Rotation 2. We're excited for September. We are so thankful for all of you who have been with us from the beginning, and also those of you who are just starting up right now. We're seeing a lot of that in the Facebook group, people who are saying, hey, we're just getting started on Hyfi. We cannot wait for what God has in store for all of you. Listen, before we are done today, I just want to remind you all that we have a couple of great events that are in advanced planning right now. We have a volunteer event that is relationship-based ministry training for your volunteers. I need to say, like, the word training is in there, but we are Hyfi. Like, it's fun. It's a really fun event. It's got games. It's got game boards. It's got games that you could like laminate and play again. It's going to be so fun. And so we would definitely recommend that you check that out. And of course, we also have a family event that we are calling Pumpkin Fest. You could do Pumpkin Fest this month. You could do it in the month of October. You could even do it in November because we still have pumpkins then. And again, I feel like I just need to shout out Isaac. If you look at that and you see the Pumpkin Shuffle game, that song will get stuck in your head forever. And you can know that our friend Isaac is actually the one that created that. And so it's so fun. And we just love getting to see you engage with your volunteers, engage with your teams, engage with your families, and engage with kids. And so until next week, we will talk to you later. Have a great, great ministry week.